Okay, so we're now going to take a look at one of the principles, and that's joint rotation. And it's not the type of joint rotation you might be thinking about, where you spark it up and rotate it around the room. It's more about the joints in your body. Carlson wasn't impressed with that. He wanted to arrest me when I said that. Okay, so joint rotation. Now when I say rotation, that also includes hinging as well. So it's just joint movement, so to speak. So we use the term joint rotation as to how your joints move. Now this is an important topic in relationship to the way you move your structure. Because the question becomes, if I'm not using force, if I'm not using muscular strength to move my body or to move another person, then what am I actually using? I'm using, and we're using, our structure and joint rotation from the structural level. Now, what that essentially means is that when Carlson's putting pressure on me, I'm not wanting to fight against him. I'm wanting to control what goes on inside my body. As I said earlier, they'll say in Cantonese, "Yap in June," which means to turn inside, right? So as I put pressure to Carlson, I'm not fighting directly against his force. I don't really care that his force is there. I just ignore it in a way and then just turn my joint in here inside, yeah? So this joint turns inside to move. What that does, it allows my muscles to stay relaxed enough to take the incoming force from his body into my structural system. So if you could see his force, like energetic line, so to speak, you'd see it traveling into my actual structure down to the floor. And ultimately, you'd want to actually give that back to them as well, but that's a different topic. So what we're thinking about is, okay, how does our body move in rotations? How does it move in structure? When I first started out at Sifu Gyms, my teacher at the time, Mark Spence, who was running the certificate for like the teacher training course at the Wing Chun Academy, he was big on rotation and movement of the structure. And then when we went to Hong Kong, it became quite an important part of the way Qigong taught. Now, a little bit of a caveat to that. Funny thing is that Qigong never actually thought, so my master never actually thought about joint rotation when he was practicing his forms. It more so became a teaching tool to explain to people how not to use force when practicing. So it became a teaching tool. So it's a great concept, principle to be aware of. So you know, okay, it's the rotation of my joints in my body that help develop the power, not the muscular force. But ultimately, it's not the end game in the sense that you want the mind and the energy to lead that. Let me go further to that. So think of it this way. If I reach my hand over here, or over here, or over here, or anywhere, right? My joints have to rotate to get there. But I don't have to think about the actual rotation of the joint. So what does that mean? It means you can actually do it consciously, where if there is some pressure, okay, I think, okay, I turn this joint inside. I'm consciously turning it, right? But ultimately, you just want to just reach your hand in. You don't want to have to think, oh, I'm turning this joint at 74 degrees to the left angle of north. You see what I'm getting at. So joint rotation is important, but it's not the ultimate destination. Now, each movement has, of course, so tan sao, bong sao, cut down, full sao, side slash, all of them have rotations in the joints. And, you know, not to discredit it with my last comments about it, but it is a very valuable training tool. I remember back in Qigong, there was this senior student who was quite good. He was I think he was a news reporter or something, and all he would talk about was joint rotation, and he'd say, just pivot. He'd literally stand at the back of the room, usually the back, sometimes at the front. It was either back or front, it was never in between. And he'd just keep his eyes closed and he'd stand there like kind of slightly open and just like, and then he'd open his eyes, look around, close his eyes, and then sometimes you'd look over and you go, just pivot. And keep going through the movements. And then he'd go to teach you, because, you know, we'd all train with each other, and he'd be like, just pivot. So just pivot. So he was using the term pivot as rotation, and it was extremely powerful. He had kind of, I'd say, probably mastered joint rotation to a degree. So, what am I getting at here? Joint rotation is a fundamental principle of Wing Chun, but remember, it's a part of the journey, not the ultimate goal. The reason we rotate joints and think in that fashion is so that we do not use force on force. We turn inside our body. So another example would be if Carson puts pressure on my leg here. So let me just step back a bit. Two hands on my thigh. Yeah, push. Yeah, push pressure. You can stand up. And push down on my leg. Push. Yeah. So rather than me using strength against Carson here, which is going to make it quite easy for him to push me back, I go into my structure, I center, I sink, and then I turn the joint, yeah? Turn the joint. So this would be the hip joint turning. Same principle applies here. So if I want to bring my hand across this way, this joint turns to bring the hand across. Same thing applies if I just wanted to get my fist down there. You could use the turning or hinging of the elbow joint, yeah? So it's all, you can think of it in terms of joint rotation. And one last point on that is that if you remember the example I gave of Sigong where he did strength, structure, state, this is the structure level. Because once you're in state, ultimately you don't think about joint rotation. You just move. Okay, I hope you found that useful. If you do have any questions, once again, you know where to put them in the community, and I look forward to seeing you in our next video.